Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Ron. We'll get started here, see if we have any questions. And see, last Monday, we started off talking about Charles's question from Luke 12, went into those verses, and maybe if we get chance again, we'll go back there. There's a question I have from there, but let's see first if we have any other questions. Uh, Anything grab your attention this week? And let's start from there. Questions or observations? Yes.
I have something that I would like to put out there, unless there are
Okay.
questions.
Yes, sir.
If anyone have questions, of course, I want them to ask the questions before I say what I observed.
Okay. Does anyone have anything? I think it's yours, Pastor.
Okay. This week, I have, some of you may have heard this. Tucker Carlson was talking at an event on behalf of Donald Trump. And the illustration that he used was quite chauvinistic. However, at the same time, it spoke to what we are doing. He said that there was he said Daddy must come home at some time. And in saying that, he said that the reason is because a 2-year-old is smearing the contents of his diaper on the wall. And at the same time, a 15-year-old is slamming her room door and giving a finger to, well, he didn't say who she was giving the finger to, he just giving a finger. And he said that when Daddy gets home, Daddy is pissed. And Daddy spanks the 15-year-old. And he says that Dad is not saying that it's going to hurt you more than it hurt me, because it doesn't. He he knows it's going to hurt her worse. What got me about that is this. He was illustrating the chauvinistic attitude of men, especially men in this country, but men all over the world. And that attitude was the 2-year-old, nothing happened. The 15-year-old got spanked. So Donald Trump is the daddy. America is the 15-year-old. And the attitude or the immaturity of America is the 2-year-old, is the way it was presented. So what's being shown there is the disrespect and the disdain that males have for females, or the masculine has for femininity. Rather than talk to the girl, immediately there was a spanking. There was, unless I missed it, there was no mention of any kind of corporal punishment for the 2-year-old, or any punishment at all for that matter. Again, unless I missed it. So what am I saying? I am saying that he said something without knowing what he said. And at the same time, was showing that the male could do anything he wanted to do without being chastised. And he showed it in a immature way. So what I saw is that a recognition, a subconscious recognition of the immaturity of masculinity and the actions of masculinity in the world when he talked about smearing the contents of his diaper on all the walls. And with the feminine, I saw the disdain for the feminine in that he was saying that even though the feminine was more mature, she had to be punished because of her attitude. So the flip side of that is this, that he did not know what he was saying. The mature feminine energy, a feminine energy is mature and masculine is not. And we're in a time where femininity is about to become the president of actually the world, or the president of America. And the masculinity is pushing back hard on that because of its immaturity. That's what I gathered from that, based on what he said. Excuse me, that's what I saw in his subconsciousness. That is a message that not only speaks to where we are at this moment, calling Donald Trump daddy and saying that America must be spanked by Donald Trump, and masculinity that's not supporting Donald Trump is smearing the contents of his diaper all over the walls, which you can infer from that what you will. That reminded me of that reminds me rather of a portion of scripture that we talked about with Charles when it talked about, you think I came to bring peace, but I came to bring a sword, or you think I came to bring tranquility or order, but I came to bring division. That to me ties into all of that. Are there any questions so far or comments, please? Or did any one of you see or hear that?
I guess I'm studying it and trying to come up with, in my head possibilities, but I don't think the intellect there was anything other than the words itself. There's nothing, spiritual about him coming up with that, at least not on his own intent. I think it really demoralizes women, of course, in the fact that, speaking of the immaturity and the inability to be matched by men and to always be dominant and punished by men. And I think it's pretty scary to call Donald Trump daddy when you think of what a father is in the spiritual world, are supposed to be. And to think of him in that manner is pretty sad. But I think you captured it pretty well, though.
And I don't think he meant it in any way whatsoever to be spiritual, but I think it is a picture of what is, as opposed to what is. A picture of what is existing in the minds of men in this material world, as opposed to what is in the process of manifesting um, in this world from the spiritual, based on spirituality. Questions, comments?
I'm glad. Good morning. This is Audrey. I'm glad you're talking about this because when I heard him say all those things, immediately I said to Richard, why are the examples girls? And why are girls being spanked? I mean, it was just really that immediate for me in his example. And yeah, I think it's indicative of the bias that he has as a toxic male. So yeah, I'm glad you're talking about this.
Thank you.
The first, one of the thoughts, maybe not the first, but one of the thoughts that crossed my mind when you said it was a sexual connection. Spanking a 15-year-old. I mean, maybe there's something to that is not being said.
Oh, I agree with you, Ron. I
Yeah.
do agree with you because that was one of the things that crossed my mind as well, especially when you think about the deviance of or the perversion of who he calls daddy and his own perversion as well. When we think about the males or the masculinity that's in charge, it is more devious or more perverse than anything I can think of. And I'm talking about whether it be the evangelical church or whether it be politics. This example was political, of course, but everything is spiritual. And he's talking about the spiritual place where males are in terms of the current environment. And this environment of which he spoke is not something that came to being during the course of the advent of Donald Trump in 2016. This is something that has been in play in this country since the beginning. And now the exposure of it is beginning to express itself so that no one would be surprised or shocked when the manifestation of the strength of femininity is brought into this earth. One of the things that grates on my nerves is when I hear someone who looked like me talking about the founding fathers as opposed to those who founded the country. The founding fathers are not, I don't see them as founding fathers as much as I see them as racist men. I see, and because of that, I can see the reason there is such pushback. And at one time, I felt like the pushback was the events that happens in our lives that are uncomfortable, distasteful, or troubling, challenging. That is a part of it. But we are looking at the major pushback. The pushback against change, against the goddess, is being shown every single day. Every time someone opens their mouth in support of the poster child for perverted masculinity, the poster child for the masculine nature of who they call the founding fathers, the poster child for everything that is adversarial in this earth. Anyone, well, I was speaking with someone, I told them that anyone who supports Donald Trump's campaign is a racist. And if you look like me, you can't be a racist, but you can be stupid. Because to support him is to support your own demise. So what am I saying? I'm saying that regardless of how the minds of white people work, regardless of how many of them support Kamala Harris, when Donald Trump talked about going back to 1789, that's when that's what he called make America great again. When he talks about that, no one said ask him the question, are you talking about you would prefer being in 1789 because of slavery? Are you saying that you want to re-enslave the African? Nobody asked that question. And that, to me, that's an obvious question. And, and to publicly raise that question, hopefully, will cause some men to reconsider the decisions that they've made. In addition to that, I received a video yesterday from Evan. And it was Jim Swagger's boy, who is also a preacher. And he was chastising the Black church for supporting Kamala Harris. He said that he did not understand how the Black church, in my words, not his, how the Black church could support abortion. And he went down the list of things that the Black church is supporting because Kamala Harris is evil. She is of the devil. And everything that God likes, Democrats hate. And in his chastisement of the church, of course, there was responses from some of the ministers who Roland Martin had on his show. It's a long video, well, it's not long, it's like 30 minutes, but the first 10 or 15 minutes tells you the whole story. And when I take that and couple it with what Tucker Carlson said, I see the white slave master in that pulpit telling Nat Turner what to preach. I see that white slave master in that pulpit coupling himself to the leadership in government, telling the nation of Africans how they should think and what they should see in the Bible, even though it doesn't exist there. That's where we are at this moment in time. I'm very sensitive to the statements that are being made, but I'm also sensitive to what I'm sensing in the atmosphere. And I don't want any of you to think for a moment that I'm sensing anything less than a win by Kamala Harris. I don't want you to, for a moment, to be afraid of anything. If you know who you are, if you believe what you believe, you have no reason to be ambivalent about what is going on and what is about to happen. I'm done. Questions, comments?
Thank you. No questions about what Pastor said. Do you have any other questions or comments about something that doesn't have to be the subject?
I want to look at that verse that Charles talked about in the 12th chapter of Luke. When it said that, when the writer says do you think that I came to smooth things over or make everything nice? Not so. I come to disrupt and to confront. I come to create division. Is the gist of that. So, what does that look like? What division what division has come into the earth? Why division? What's being divided? What's being separated? Any responses to that question? What's being separated?
Well, that was the question I wanted to revisit too. If you look at the verses, I guess that's first. I'm looking at it in the Message Bible. For one thing, I wondered why did he say 5 in a house? But he says 3 against 2 and 2 against 3, father against son and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, and mother-in-law against the bride, and the bride against the mother-in-law.
Ron.
Sure.
Before we go to that verse,
Yes,
that
sir.
section rather, I want to talk about for a moment, if you don't mind, what's being
Okay.
confronted,
Okay,
what's
I'm
being
sorry.
divided. And then we go to
Okay.
if that's okay.
This is for
I
Mel.
think, oh, go ahead,
Go ahead.
Vermont.
I was gonna say, is it the sty that's in our own eyes that's being divided?
So is it the sty that's in our own eyes? That's not what I see, but I'm not going to say that's not what it is. I see something else. And I will revisit that for Mel in a moment, okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Audrey?
He's dividing truth. I mean, he's separating out what is true and what is not true.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you. Both of you are right, because the star in our eye is what we see is the religion that we thought was the truth. And now what's being said here is that the division is taking place. And if we look at it now in our current time, what we are seeing is the division of truth and the truth and the lie being divided, being exposed so that you can clearly see the difference between the two. I believe that also these the truth in these verses that were rewritten for the wrong reason, but the truth that's still there, they were put there for such a time as this. I believe that this is the first time in hundreds of years, if not thousands, that we've had the opportunity, a golden opportunity, to see a clear division between the truth and a lie, between the wisdom of spirituality and the doctrine of religion. And that in itself is a sty in the eye that must be removed. Any questions or comments about that? Or am I on the in the same space of understanding that Vermeil and Audrey mentioned?
I think your description is right on. I think you're definitely in the right space.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it supports the next few verses too. Next verse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there are not questions or comments about the statements that were just made, you want to move to those verses, Ron?
Yeah, the thing that stood out to me is with this is it doesn't do any cross genders, right? It does not say mother against son or father against daughter. It says father against son and mother against daughter. The other thing it does is it's generational. It doesn't say son against daughter, meaning being in the same generation. It covers one generation against the other. And the last one that really stands out, it says mother-in-law against the bride and the bride against the mother-in-law. And what stood out to me is those are the two that probably are the most important people in the son of the bridegroom's life. Those are going to be the two that influences him the most. And that kind of stood out to me, mother-in-law against the bride. It could have said mother-in-law against the wife, but she says bride. So to me, that means something. So tie that into what you just said, I guess. Thank you.
This the spirituality. I see this from a spiritual perspective as I did the previous verses, as well as the subsequent verses. I see this message is more about masculinity and femininity than anything else. If you notice, it talks about father against son and son against father, but when it gets to femininity, it talks about mother against daughter, daughter against mother, and then mother-in-law. So there is more feminine energy involved in this. And I see this as talking about the struggle that masculinity is having with itself. And that struggle is dealing with the immaturity of what is perceived to be the essence of masculinity, as opposed to the mature masculinity that understands that it is complementary to femininity. And when it comes to the femininity, I see the struggle being that the more mature femininity is engaged in the same struggle with itself, and that is the immature femininity. The immature meaning that I don't believe that a woman can lead. I don't believe that a woman should be president. I think that we are supposed to make decisions in regards to females because they don't have the propensity to make decisions for themselves. That's the immaturity. And there are females who think like that, but there are more males, of course, who think that way. And when it comes to the mother-in-law against the bride, the mother-in-law is the mother of the son, because it's talking about the mother-in-law against the bride. This is speaking to this immaturity that is about to join forces with the immature son, and is talking about the marriage between the immature masculinity and immature femininity. And the immature masculinity and femininity is represented by the relationship between males and females that we have been currently experiencing as long as we can remember. And I see the maturity of the feminine and the masculine as being as recognizing rather the necessity to understand that not only do they complement each other, but the reason why it's necessary for them to complement each other, while at the same time recognizing that femininity is actually the goddess that birthed everything that is. Uh, and femininity is the womb of the universe, not only in this physical sense, but the spiritual sense. So that's how I perceive it. Any does that make sense, first of all? And second, are there questions or comments to help make sense or to bring some clarity?
It makes sense. Can I add something to it, or see if this part makes sense? If I look at it, and I'm especially talking about the mother-in-law and the bride. If I look at it as femininity representing your higher self, and femininity representing the persuasion of the masculinity. Can it also be saying that you are pulling him away from religion? You are pulling him away from mind control. And I'm going to fight you on this. This is can it be seen as religion fighting to hold on to the power that it has, and the bride offering a freshness and newness of life? Can that be also part of what is being said?
I'm seeing it like you're seeing it, Ron. I mean, I see the mother-in-law as the status quo of
Yeah,
things staying the same, no changes.
yeah.
And the bride as the new beginning. So yeah, I'm seeing it the same way you are.
So what you're saying then, if I may ask, you're seeing the mother-in-law as being the religion that has been guiding, or that men have been buying into, and the birth of spirituality through the daughter-in-law or the daughter. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said I'm just simply saying. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. The mother-in-law to me represents Margaret Thatcher. She represents Hillary Clinton. She is feminine, but she's bought into the old guard, and she represents it. And it appears that she's one thing. It appears that she's totally feminine, but she is not.
Yeah,
And
because she's upholding the old guard. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yes. So
I can see that clearly.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Sure. Why would we not be able to hear you?
Uh, I'm using Zoom for the first time over my phone on Wi-Fi, and I'm very, 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 very far away. Um, this is Sheldon, by the way, to the other listeners. Going back a few verses, when Jesus, Yeshua, in Luke in Luke here, he mentions division in terms of the servant who will be granted all the possessions of the Lord, and division in the way that if he essentially, after being empowered with all of the Lord's, God's, the Creator's possession, does not know how to be a good steward of them, that he then will have to go through division, or excuse me, more division than normal, which then makes me believe, in terms of all this, the division, of course, is internal pain and growth and agony, in a sense that someone has to fight against something that they at that time view as natural. Um, in terms of their growth, it's like they have more to learn, they have more growth to go through, and they have to they're being divided amongst where they currently are in their, for a lack of better words, their lack of maturity at the time. I see it with the mother-in-law and the bride. The bride also having division or having to go through turmoil, because she then has to also not go along with what has been viewed as what women are traditionally supposed to do, and what even like maybe her mother may have wanted her to do in terms of being a quote unquote traditional woman. So she goes through division or turmoil in a sense as well, because it's almost as if she is waking up and something is bubbling up in her, and therefore she can't be a good daughter-in-law and has to fight the mother-in-law, who of course would be going with the son. So it's not as if I see it as I don't see it as a bad thing, but it's not as if she automatically is being this woman that's just going against the man who is this supposed like Renaissance woman, or as we know on this call, where women should be. It's that maybe she has an inkling of it and is feeling that, but still within herself has to actually fight for that, because I'm not a woman, but and the women on the call can speak to it. Just from how creation work, I know that there's always, because things, no matter who you are, that is fighting and trying to bubble up and come to the top of who we are, but do we suppress them because of what we think we're supposed to be? And of course, in a traditional society that we know of, and as well as a religious society, um, all of society will be trying to stifle that. So it's like, I feel like that's her division as well as a bride. She has to overcome and fight for what deep down she knows she's supposed to be as well. I'm finished at the moment.
I like that, Sheldon.
Yeah, thank you.
I can see that. Hey, what else I thought of when you said that? If you think about the definition of helpmate, it means to stand against. It means to oppose something. It also means to protect you. So she's standing her ground, being who she's supposed to be and what she's supposed to be, and not just being a part of the here and now, and not the here and now, but the old ways of doing things, and the taking my place in the kitchen kind of thing. I see that, and I hope I'm not out there, but that's how I saw what you were saying. Yeah.
So, are you saying that should be the idea of a helpmeet speaks to protection, but protecting you from yourself?
Yes. Exactly. And I saw something else when he was talking. Move you from your father's country that you may be a nation. Your father's country is not only hedged in and protective of greed and selfishness and what else? Thievery and hatred misogyny. But I choose not to be that. I choose to stand alone, although it is difficult, and I'm going against the old guard with all that energy. But I stand alone.
moving to away from the Father's country is moving away from the consciousness, the dominant earth consciousness that seems to prevail, and moving to a place of spiritual consciousness. That's a journey in itself.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's funny because in a few verses up before we got to the division, with Yeshua or Jesus, he doesn't use the word actually. Well, the word that I have for baptism is immersion, and then I also get a sense that it was with the glee that he was saying all of this stuff and basically saying, "I came to turn the world that you know upside down for you to be immersed with the Creator."
So when you said Jesus, something popped in my head. When you said Jesus, what I saw is that the energy of deliverance, which is the wisdom of the ancients, is saying, is the one who's saying, "I came to divide." So the wisdom of who we are is being represented here as the method of division, meaning that it opens your eye rather, so you can see the difference between religion and spirituality. And the reason I say wisdom is because if we truly read what has been taken from the Kemetic writings, if we read that, what we begin to see, the things that are attributed to Jesus in terms of the writings, all of it is about wisdom. And it actually speaks to femininity.
Yeah.
Especially when it talks about the hen taking the brood under her wings. He would like to Israel under his wings as the hen does her brood to protect them. That's more of a maturation of femininity in a sense of nurturing, when you think.
Yeah, and even to further support that, Pastor, in the books of Proverbs, as much as it talks about wisdom, it's in the feminine. It speaks of wisdom as being feminine.
So the wisdom of the energy of deliverance is feminine. However, because of male domination, all of these truths are attributed to a male.
Yeah, I can definitely speak on that, and to come to including what you just said and what Ron said in terms of a footstool. Wisdom coming from Sophia, and Sophia meaning femininity. And you think about the traditional sense of which I didn't have a grasp for when I was in the church, the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is actually considered as being feminine as well, and it's that femininity that, in a sense, is leading us and the more wise one. So at any time, in terms of masculinity, for the most part, we are allowed to do what it is that we do in a sense in terms of having free will, but there's always femininity there supporting us and helping us, and in a sense trying to get us back on track, which goes back to where you began earlier in talking about the presidential race and femininity now taking over and leading the country. And I believe that has been from not only femininity pushing, but the masculine in the space as well, in a sense, not going against the other masculinity, but yielding to it and recognizing that femininity to more easily allow that femininity, in a sense, to lead us. It's as if femininity had to be valued and recognized in order for this to take place as well. But femininity has always been there, always trying and wanting to do this, but not necessarily allowed and recognized as that. And of course, and this is the last thing I have to say. And of course, that also being a reason why masculinity throughout recent history for hundreds of years has gone out of its way to trample over and control femininity so that that would not happen, even if it was from a subconscious level. I'm finished at the moment.
Well,
Thank you, sir. Yeah, go ahead, Pastor.
wisdom has always been feminine from the beginning, even when the Greeks translated from the Hebrew or the Aramaic. It was even feminine then, prior to the translation. Chokmah is wisdom. I think the word is Chokmah in the Hebrew. And when we look at the translations of the Greek with Sophia, that speaks volumes because it was translated by a group who felt superior to females or to femininity, period, which means that they didn't see or realize how tangible femininity is and how real it is when it comes to wisdom. Because quite frankly, I have never read any doctrine or studied any concordance or any writings from Christians that sees wisdom beyond what they say it is, beyond what they determine it is. In actuality, what I have experienced is determining that intellectualism is wisdom. When I remember growing up and they was talking about motherwit, that's how wisdom was described, but it had nothing to do with someone who was degreed or someone who was considered to be intelligent. Does that make sense?
Yes. And while you were talking, I just had an epiphany too, and going back to the footstool and femininity. I can speak for at least all the teachers who are associated with this call. Our leadership style is leading from behind and leading from the bottom. We're not trying to outshadow and are thinking of those who supposedly come under, or in a sense that we're actually guiding, as being most important, and trying to essentially put all who are supposedly that we guide in the light, metaphorically, if you will. Whereas masculine femininity aims, and it's funny because it definitely goes to this presidential race, to elevate itself and to be on top or above everything that is supposed to be, in a sense, in watch over. And so this idea of looking at femininity as a footstool came about because of that lack of understanding of how leadership works in terms of being a servant and trying to help versus being in complete control and making someone doing something or taking all of their power, etc. And then of course, that wraps right back to again the division in terms of that ideal or believing or that understanding must be divided and must fall. I'm finished.
When I have visions of what's about to manifest on November 5th, I see this image of femininity. It's like I sit in the midair, and it is protecting those who are in the earth as its children that are being guided and protected from the ignorance of the essence of who's guiding them. That image that I see is no different than the image of Isis. It's not the image of Isis is just an image. The image of Kamala Harris is just an image. It's not the real thing. When you dismiss the image because you think it's the real thing, it truly expresses your ignorance in regards to what you're dismissing. And that's how Christianity arrived at the lie about the African worshiping multiple gods. They were images of different attributes, no different than you saying Yahweh, or you saying Elohim, or these are aspects of the character, and the image that I see is representative of the power and presence of femininity in a major way, a way that the earth has not experienced it in thousands of years. That's the manifestation. That's the vision that I have when I think about the results of November 5th. I simply wanted to add that, and the reason is that when we think about the atmosphere, we are talking also about spirituality, the air, the breath, the rhythm of the universe, being feminine. And so it's not Kamala Harris, the physical being. It is the wisdom that we seek to put in the macro that is guiding that image. But the reality of it is the feminine energy, the feminine guidance, the feminine rhythm of the universe that's overpowering the dilapidated consciousness of the earth and actually changing it so that as above, so as below, meaning that we would be on the same wavelength. We would be in rhythm with the thoughts of the universe, the desires of femininity, as opposed to us thinking that all of this is going to become invisible to us. It's already spiritual as we see it now. And it will always appear the way it appears, but our response to it will be different than what it has been. The joining together of spirituality and the material world is a merging of time and space with which is being guided by the spiritual nature of everything that is. I'm done.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Pastor Jay and family, do you think our downfall has been because we look at the image and not, and you may have said this, but we were looking at the image of a person instead of looking at the divinity or respecting the divinity of a person, because some people can come in your life and in people's life, and because of what they have on, what they say, you know, we buy that. And again, instead of looking at the person, the divinity of that person, is that one of our downfalls because of that? America is all about image. And that's my question. I'll stop there for right now.
The downfall of America was set in place when it was organized. I heard someone say the first sin of America was slavery, but that's not true. The first sin of America was genocide. Slavery was the next. When you talk about the downfall because of seeing the image, we were taught subliminally as well as overtly to embrace images as opposed to spirituality. That is, do you think that it is coincidental that people worship the pastor? That they are very submissive? Because worship means to submit to. Do you think it's coincidental that people are uncomfortable questioning the one in the pulpit? And 9 times out of 10, well, 99.9 of the time, the one in the pulpit is masculine. And even if it's a female in the pulpit, she's submissive to masculinity. If she goes beyond what masculinity says, then she's not considered a preacher. Plus, she's also denigrated because she's not called the pastor as much as she called an evangelist. So all of these subliminal terms guide us or convince us that we are supposed to bow to images. And I mean in a spiritual sense, in terms of bowing to these images. It was no coincidence that the image that is called Jesus is masculine and white. There's no coincidence, because if I can convince you that God is white, then, and when you look at me subconsciously, I'm white and you go see me as your God. All of this was purposely brought into existence. And it started with when Caesar made Christianity the official religion of Rome. And from that point, used it in order to subvert the power in the countries that he conquered, and to keep people in line through guilt of not being good enough. And those who are in the pulpit are the ones who have been ordained by Christianity to become an image of piety, image of righteousness, and at the same time keep you in a state of flux, keep you in a place of guilt, so that you will always be submissive to whatever comes from that pulpit, or submissive to the dominant one in there. And when you think about that in regards to the reasoning behind that picture of Serapis called Jesus being painted the way it was, it is no different than putting a man in the pulpit. Europeans said that only men could be preachers. Europeans said that only men could be deacons. Europeans said that only men could be trustees. Europeans said that a woman is not supposed to teach a man. All of those things are doctrines and present images that that plays a major part in our idolatry, our nature of idolatry. Because when you bow to a thing, when you submit to a thing, you are actually in idolatry. Does that make sense, Adam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So religion has a religion taught us to look at the image and not the divinity of an individual.
There is no divinity of an individual unless you're talking about creating in an image, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about
no,
the
let me finish.
Okay.
The church does not teach you that there's a divinity in you beyond you being created in an image. You're just a mere man. The church does not talk to you about you being Elohim, you being God, you the God of this earth. It doesn't talk to you about that. You cannot truly be spiritual until you die and go to heaven. Does that make sense, Ms. Evelyn?
Yes, but I was saying that the divinity that we are, people don't respect that, is what I'm saying.
They don't know it.
Okay.
Right, Evelyn.
And the church, and the church, the church doesn't talk to you, they talk at you. So, yeah, I see what you're saying now, but yeah.
And
but what you about to say, Audrey? I'm sorry.
The church teaches us that we are not God. We're not equal to God. We're not anything but a sinner. So if you are taught you're a sinner, how do you look at somebody else and see them as divine? No, you see them as a sinner.
Right. I hear you.
What do we do today? And looking at the scripture, once again, if you look at the scriptures, this scripture, I come to divide, I come to wreak havoc in you, in your lives. That is always, to me anyway, been thought of as negative, without a lack of understanding. And what we have proven again is when you apply wisdom to it and see what it's truly saying and feel it resonate in you, it does not bring fear. And you understand what it's saying. And it also further says that the words in this book, no matter what it says and how it has been manipulated and glossed over, when you apply wisdom to it and you have the desire to see truth for the betterment of man, you uncover what is truly there. And that's who we are, and that's what we do.
Well, Ron, I'm sorry, I yield.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I'm glad you guys covered this, the teachers and pastor of the family, because I thought, what kind of God would cause chaos, division between family members? But after being with the family, I realized you can't look at scripture literally. It's always,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm glad we went over this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. It's the energy of this group that does this, and I don't think we don't need to give credit to ourselves, but I don't think we recognize what we do all the time either. Example, it was many years ago. A couple that was close to me, at least one of them was, and they both are now. But planned a wedding, fell in love, planned this wedding, and had a huge wedding, and spent lots of money. Beautiful church, and the way they decorated it, and flowers everywhere. It's probably one of the most beautiful settings I'd ever seen, and had a great honeymoon. And I remember her talking to me about it, and all the seeing the pictures of the honeymoon and all this stuff, and they came back. A flight was delayed, and they got back into town in the middle of the night, maybe 2 a.m. or something. But by the time they drove from the airport, they end up sleeping half the next day, right? So they get up that morning and start opening boxes and arranging the house. And she said it dawned on her, all that stuff was over. All the hype, that year worth of planning, the wedding, the reception, all that stuff that they took all that time and energy and the plan and even the honeymoon. And now I come back and there's nothing more to plan. There's nothing more. What's left? And she said, what was left is to live. What is left is to move on, to be who we had been planning to be. But the problem was they had not thought about what we planned to be. They only saw the wedding. They only saw the coming together. So it took them a while to get that thing started, besides the going to work and doing all that stuff, the daily life stuff. And to wake up and say, you know what, I got a husband. And the difference that made in their lives. And I say that to say this, that where we are now, we stand for mankind. And standing for mankind is what takes place, or what will take place after this election. Because we as you see on television and you look at it, and the election is extremely important. But election is just a new beginning. And what we're doing now is planning for the beginning that mankind will see. Because it'll be a new beginning for the whole earth. And where we are now is making preparations for that. So we go over scripture, we uncover things, and we see that there's absolutely nothing for us to fear, because our motives are right, our desires are right, and all we want is truth. And all we want to do is set the balance that the earth was intended to be. And that's who we are. We're going to make sure that this marriage gets off to a better start. Again, I just want to make sure we know that there's nothing to fear here, regardless of what happened, regardless of what we read, regardless of what we study. We take the lid off, and there's nothing to fear. Keep walking in what you're walking in, the peace that you are. Thank you. I hope that made sense.
It does. We are spirit. And I do believe what you described is an example of the experience of as above, so is below. When we come together, our primary goal is to reach people who don't know they're being reached. When it talks about as above, so is below, when we come together, we are joining two worlds, the material world and the spiritual world. We are not in time. we are in a space. And in that space, we bring into this material world the reality of what our existence means. I do believe with everything in me that the way that we are being shown what's written is a way of showing us what it looks like when above and below spiritual and material becomes one. I believe that it also shows us what it feels like, the experience of the marriage between space and time, between spirituality and materiality. Because what we talk about is not scripted. What we experience is not manufactured. And what we repeat is not ritualistic. The guidance comes through the eye of the universe. So what am I saying? I'm saying that my experience every time we come together is that we are in the same spiritual space. And when there is something that seeks to enter the spiritual space that is adversarial to it, it is disconcerting. It's like scratching a record. It throws everything off. And what I mean by throwing it off, it causes us to shift to seeing the material world, and we have to pull it back so we can experience both worlds at once. That is the spiritual and the material. Am I making sense so far?
Yes, to me you are.
So I hope I'm making sense to all of you guys. If not, please say so. So I'm saying that right now, even though my voice is material, the thing that gives sound to my voice is spirit. So the reason I call it my voice is because it cannot speak without me. The spiritual essence is what speaks, and that's the thing that brings about the marriage between time and spirit, or time and space. So from this point forward, let's try our best, do your best to focus on that. We are speaking from a spiritual space rather than a geographical location. We are in this world, but not of this world. We are in the midst of earthly consciousness, but that is not what brought us into existence. We're not of this world. We are not, our origin is not earthly consciousness, even though we think that we are a product of our environment. We are only a product of our environment if we believe it. The environment is supposed to be a product of us. When you are God in this earth and you know it, then your environment is reflective of who you are. And when that is the case, and it should be at all times, then we can more clearly experience what it's like to be God. we can more experience what it's like to be in the midst of chaos, yet being obligated to bring order to it. It's like going into the church and the rituals are going on and the preaching and all the other stuff that we've experienced in the church, and now it's foreign to us. Why is it foreign? Because we exist in a different space than what we different than what we have existed in the past. And when we enter this space that we once existed in, we are entering a space of materialism, religion, false spirituality, pseudo truth, if that's a word, if I can combine those two words. And the reason it's disconcerting or uncomfortable is because we're accustomed to living in that spiritual space. I'm done. And I hope that's clear.
Yeah, it's clear to me. You said the same thing I was trying to say. The marriage is a merging of two worlds, and so yeah, I think you straighten it out and put detail to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anybody? I love what we do. I love what we do. I love the energy on this phone and your questions, and even if you don't say anything, coming back every day that we meet speaks of the desire of everyone here, and that's the energy that you bring. Thank you. And if there's nothing else to grab our attention,
Ron,
I'm sorry. Yes.
before we go, I just have a sort of a question, comment.
Okay.
So, but even with this scripture, you know, the father against the son, mother against the daughter. We can see that clearly right now, that's happening in the material world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's at a point now where everybody is feeling it. So if that is supposed to happen, then feminine energy is supposed to step forward to bring the balance. Is that not true? Wisdom, feminine energy
Yes.
steps forward to bring things into balance.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we've decreed that feminine energy will step forward to bring things into balance.
Yes. May I say this, Audrey?
Yes.
That feminine energy is balance. It's not, and
Yeah.
when we talk about balance between femininity and the masculine energy, we are not talking about equality.
No.
We're talking about balance.
Mm-hmm.
Huge difference. Thank you.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else, guys? Anyone else? That seemed like a good place to stop and ponder and see if we have any questions tomorrow. Thanks again. Hope you enjoy your day. And we will see you again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Thanks, everyone.
You guys have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, family.
Bye, everyone.